Mr. Morelle, Ranking Member Morelle, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Burgess,
And can I just say, it's good to have you back here in the Rules Committee. We spent a lot of hours up here together in years past. So welcome back.
Thank you.
We kept your place for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member McGovern, and thank you to all the members of the committee. And I do want to express as well my sympathies to the Massey family for this tragedy, and our prayers are certainly with them. Thanks for allowing me time. It is great to be back here. I had the great privilege of serving for 4 years on the Rules Committee. I think I sat where Mr. Norman, my good friend from the 5th floor of Cannon, serves and sits, and enjoyed immensely the 4 years I was here. I wish today I was here under different circumstances. I am grateful for the work you do, and thank you for having me, but I must strongly object to the bill before us this afternoon. Every American should be absolutely clear about why Speaker Johnson and House Republicans are advancing this bill. For all the hysterical rhetoric surrounding the SAVE Act, Republicans have one real purpose here: to continue to erode the confidence of Americans in our election systems, to destroy, in fact, our faith in our democracy itself. And I cannot imagine a more disgraceful exercise. As members of Congress, we are obligated, we are duty-bound, we swore oaths to defend the republic, not disfigure it. This bill is a vehicle for lies, plain and simple. The sole objective is to convince Americans, to scare them into believing that non-citizens, without a shred of evidence, are going to steal the election from Donald Trump. But Americans are not as naive as many of my colleagues think they are. Republicans know, they know that non-citizen registration and voting in federal elections is already illegal. To register is illegal. To vote is illegal. It leads to deportation. They know this simply does not happen. The Committee on House Administration has held several hearings on non-citizen voting, and my colleagues could not produce any evidence to back up their claims. In fact, Speaker Johnson admitted he had absolutely no proof of non-citizen voting in federal elections. But this is not a new project, as the ranking member has articulated. In 2020, Donald Trump and his allies, many of them in Congress, tried to deceive Americans about the security of our elections. They claimed that absentee ballots would lead to voter fraud. They claimed that extended early voting would lead to voter fraud. None of these claims ended up being true. Everyone in this room knows those claims are false, even if they will not admit as much. The Stop the Steal claims were lies, as history has shown, but led to one of the most shameful days in American history. The deadly, violent attack on this building on January 6, 2021 should never have happened. Should never, of course, be repeated. But as the ranking member has stated, the SAVE Act is a purposeful way to lay the groundwork to begin the conspiracy for another insurrection. The former president and his allies thought Americans were gullible enough to believe the lies of 2020. They hope Americans are gullible enough to believe those lies today. Americans, however, are smarter than you think. This bill will not solve any problems American elections do face, from chronic underfunding to constant violent threats against election administrators. What will the SAVE Act do? It will, quite simply, disenfranchise millions of eligible American citizens. It will greatly increase the burden, increase the cost in both time and money for any American citizen that wants their voice to be heard. The bill would especially burden military voters, tribal voters, rural voters, survivors of natural disasters, many of which we're experiencing throughout the country today, and the tens of millions of married women in America who have changed their names. The fact that by advancing the SAVE Act, Republicans will make it harder for men and women in uniform to register to vote shows how misguided this legislation is. Republicans are clearly telling the American people they believe that no barrier is too high to place in the way of the ballot, no burden too heavy for Americans to bear if they wish to vote. The SAVE Act is the most extreme, most radical election bill in living memory. It will quite literally disenfranchise millions of Americans. Republicans doing this all damage just to help Donald Trump undermine American faith in our democracy. As I said before, the American people are not as naive as Speaker Johnson and House Republicans think they are. They proved that in 2020, and they will prove it again this November. The tragedy here is that the Republican backers of this bill have such a poor view of their constituents, they're willing to lie to them in ways that they have already done irreparable damage to our nation in ways that will continue to do untold damage to our nation's core identity, our elections, our democracy. I wish House Republicans had the courage to stand up and say enough is enough. I wish they had the courage to openly debate this damaging bill. Instead, the majority wants to move this legislation under a closed rule, blocking any amendments that could improve this fatally flawed SAVE Act. Sadly, I fear they don't. With that, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman, I yield back.